Let's try playing the correct intro now. Let's do that. Holy Christ. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Cheap Seat Booking. It is a fabulous run-in episode. I was able to scramble this morning because my phone literally blew up in my pocket when I couldn't answer it. I thought I was being power called because somebody had died in my family. It wasn't. It was somebody had died in the celebrity world. First off, let me introduce my guests from Washington State, representing the Upbeat Vibe Collective. Check them out if you're in the area. Jason is returning guest. Jason, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you, sir?
You know what? I am hot. I am sweaty. I am dehydrated. So I am working on that. But you know what? Summer is here and life is good. And coming out of Erie, Pennsylvania, by way of Ohio, representing the Undone. Check out their stuff on Spotify. It's fantastic. We have Brian, our first time guest. But I think it's like the second or third attempt at this. It's just I'm bad at scheduling. Brian, how you doing?
I don't think it's that you're bad at scheduling. It's that I'm bad at, being available. So, it's good. I mean, it's 95 degrees Fahrenheit in Erie, Pennsylvania today. And, same thing. I'm just kind of sweating everywhere. Got some bad news this morning, obviously, like we all did. And, whatever, we're going to make a good day out of it. So,
I mean, it's been a hell of a fucking week, though. I mean, we lost Theo Huxtable. Malcolm Jamal Warner right at the beginning of the week. Found this out as I had gotten to work. And then we lost the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. That's the one that hurts. I have so many people reaching out to me today going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, Ozzy fucking died." And then they're like, no, the other thing. And I'm like, Chuck Mangione? I'll be honest with you. I didn't realize he was a real person. I thought Chuck Mangione was something from King of the Hill. Cool. And they're like, no, the other thing, Hulk Hogan. I'm like, yeah, okay. I get why people think that about me. But when that news broke, I was, I work at a chemical plant, so it's not always possible for me to grab my phone. So it was sitting in my coveralls pocket, and it was like I was being power called. And it wasn't. It was just group messages going off on Facebook and through text and Instagram. I'm getting direct messages. I'm getting texts, and people are like, "Oh my God, Hulk Hogan, Hulk Hogan, Hulk Hogan." I'm like, I'm not that big of a fan. However, let's be honest here. Without Hulk Hogan in the 80s, pro wrestling was never going to be the same. The Attitude Era never would have been the same. And I don't mean because he flipped the switch and turned heel in 1996 and jumped on the Outsiders' coattails and rode the NWO wave. I mean that our favorite young superstars that made the Attitude Era were inspired by this man. Good, bad, or indifferent. And this is not going to be a Hulk Hogan love fest because he was a human being and he had some terrible, terrible traits. But we will definitely get into that. However, the 80s would not have been the same. It's starting off his little hiatus from WWF, I believe. Jason, you went to high school with George Hackenschmidt, so you were there when Hulk Hogan did his thing. So I mean, like Hulk Hogan's first run, the WWF did not go. I think that's the correct amount of W's for that time frame.
Sure, that was around 1980, I believe. Yeah. He came in for a run. I think he was in Florida before,
yes.
or Memphis, one of the smaller.
I think he traveled those southern territories fairly well.
Yeah, and he came in for a run, and I think he was Golden Sterling was his first gimmick name. And
Sterling Boulder?
I think it was.
You know what? Honestly, it could be a bunch of things because when you're just young and out there and trying it, you're trying to find the right name. You may think it's Golden Sterling or Sterling Boulder is a great name.
Yeah, and I think Vince Sr. gave him the name. He wanted an Irish representative, so he gave him the name of Hogan. I mean, you had Bruno for the Italian, you have Pedro for the Latinos, and gave him that name, and he became Hulk Hogan. Came in for a run, and then I believe he stayed until the Rocky 3 offer came along, and I think Vince Sr. said basically either, you know, you're not going to do the movie, and Hulk said, you know, yeah, I am, and that's kind of why I believe he left the WWF the first time.
And let's be honest here. That kind of mirrors how Sergeant Slaughter's career went as well, because I believe it was Vince Jr. said, "Yeah, you're not going to do your cartoon," and Sarge said, "The fuck, I'm not. I'm an action figure," and he was out the door.
Yep.
And I honestly, I didn't realize until years later that it wasn't, you know, WWF champ Hulk Hogan in the movie. It was big wrestler Hulk Hogan in the movie that hasn't done anything yet. He's the Wardlow of WWE. Big dude, lots of potential, hasn't done shit yet. So, and then, you know, he came back at the right time, without having to do a whole lot of red, white, and blue attire. Walked right in on the Iron Sheik, and that was it. Everything took off.
Well, I think we need to back up a little bit.
All right.
So right after or during the Rocky 3 premiere or before it, he went to Minneapolis and worked in the AWA territory. And he was a huge babyface. And that's really where Hulkamania was born, in the AWA territory. And basically same thing. I mean, with Vern Gagne, the owner of the company, it came down to, I think, merchandising off of the shirt, off the Hulkamania shirt. And I think Vern didn't want to give him a cut. So basically, you know, Vince came in and swooped him away. And, you know, we'll talk more about that. But that's kind of pre-WWF, or WWF, I should say.
Yeah. And then Vern just...
He blew it.
The tale of the demise of AWA is Vern making terrible decisions for the times.
So, you know, and again, reading wrestling magazines back then, I used to collect different kinds of wrestling magazines. It was always Hulk against Nick Bockwinkel. Bockwinkel was the champ. Vern loved Bockwinkel because Bockwinkel could actually, you know, be a scientific wrestler, and Bockwinkel was great at his job. But the fan support behind Hulk was so huge that he had to turn Hulk. He had to make Hulk champion. And it was all these teases of, you know, championship matches where Hulk would almost win or win and then have to give the belt back, blah, blah, blah. And he just never pulled
the dusty finish.
And and I don't, who blames Hulk for wanting to move on and make more money? But Vern had it in his hand and he blew it.
I mean, that is the tale of the demise of AWA. Is Vern had it and Vern lost it. When you look at the amount of talent that went through there, even in the later years, like Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall were a tag team there. Granted, Scott was gassed to the tits. So, I mean, for me, my wrestling fandom started because of the hype around WrestleMania 1. I was a wee tot. It would be years before I figured out, oh, this is on every week. But if you showed me wrestling, I was like, oh, this is amazing. This Hulk Hogan guy, this is amazing. That's what hooked me. And then they had the Saturday morning cartoon, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. I was right there for it. Bowl of cereal, right between G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, Thundercats, you name it. I was into it. It was his charisma unmatched. Emily's taking issues with the fact that I threw Wardlow under the bus there, but I mean, let's be honest. Wardlow is a shit ton of potential still to this day.
Because of bad booking.
You know what? That's not alive. We can get into Wardlow down the road.
I
That's
can
a
talk
whole
AEW all day long and argue with all the AEW fans, but man, it's all about the booking.
Oh, 100%. It's let's be honest. It's the casting director, right? It's it's just the way it is. So that was me. I got caught up in that Hulkamania, WrestleMania, and that's where my fandom started. He is responsible for me sitting here, even though I say I'm a recovering Hulkamaniac. And as I told a couple of coworkers on my way out the door today, I am 32 years clean on Hulk Hogan. on being a Hulkamaniac. Brian, what's your earliest message? Where'd you fall on the Hulk Hogan scale? I saw you posted a picture of Hulk Hogan and a guy I did not recognize, to be honest with you. But we've had that discussion before. So you got your photo with the Hulkster. Where do you fall in your fandom? Where do you come into this? You're a little younger than me and a lot younger than Jason.
Yep. So yeah, you guys got a few years on me. I was born in '88, so I'm 36, and so I've been watching wrestling since I could talk. Probably, I don't remember a time where I didn't watch wrestling. But if you ask me my first wrestling memory, there's two that come to mind. I'm not sure which was first. One was Cactus Jack fought Doink the Clown at my local VFW hall, and I was there, and I got a picture with Cactus Jack. I was probably 5 years old,
all right,
something like that. Which is really cool because I met Mick and I asked him about it. He remembered every single thing about that night. Like, how does that happen?
There's a long talk about Mick Foley in the future of this show too. That's a genuine dude.
The
keep going.
best dude in the world.
Yep.
The other memory is being in my local library, checking videotapes, VHS tapes, and seeing the WrestleMania 6 VHS tape of Hogan Warrior. And just thinking, I gotta see that. That looks pretty interesting. It's two superheroes fighting against each other. As a kid seeing that, you're drawn to it. That's before you know about good in-ring workers and, this guy's this and this guy's that, and internet ruins everything about wrestling and yada, yada. Like, you see two ginormous, larger-than-life people, and they're going to fight, and you have to watch it. So, in a way, Hulk Hogan is my gateway into wrestling at that point. Again, I don't know which came first, whether it was Cactus or Hulk, for me. But
yeah, I mean, because you're checking out a tape, that could go either way. But I mean, the Cactus Doink thing, I mean, Doink was kind of out mid 90s and Cactus was kind of, so I would say the mid 90s for the Cactus thing. Cause I mean, he went to WWE, I believe in early 96, and he had about, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong here. You may have a better recollection because I didn't get a lot of WCW back in the day, but I think Cactus was out of WCW by late 94.
This was Cactus was 93 when I watched him. I know that much. So
so there you go. So I mean, he was out doing indies. I mean, he had that sort of contractual falling out or whatever else. So I mean, that's pretty rad. Like you got to be 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere around there when both those things are happening. I remember WrestleMania's going to Toronto. They're in Canada. And let's be honest here. When I think about Hulk Hogan's greatest matches, it's a fucking short list. If you want to talk about Hulk Hogan putting on a spectacle, okay, absolutely. Much longer list. For some reason, two guys not known to be the Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Will Ospreay level of worker. For some reason, you put those two in the main event of WrestleMania 6, and that was probably the best match either one of them had in years. That might be Warrior's best match, period. Well, no, it
is.
I stopped myself from saying that, but the next year with Savage at WrestleMania on the retirement, that's definitely in there. However, both top tier matches, and for some reason, you took two performers that have more negative stars on the list than positive, and that was a positive star match. That was pretty good. It was a one match show. There wasn't a whole lot of the undercard that people discuss to this day, unless you want to talk about the Hart Foundation decapitating the Bolsheviks in about 8 seconds. But, I'm a little biased to my Canadian boy right there. You may tell by my forehead. But yeah, like Hogan went on the street, like his match with Savage the year before, Warrior's match with Savage the year after. And then those two, for some reason, just, I don't understand the math. I might need Professor Steiner to come in and explain it to me, because there's no good reason that those two should have put on a match that was that good.
So
we rehearsed it.
Yeah, when you talk about best wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to in-ring workers because we're super
Mm-hmm.
fans, right? Most people are just going to go to moments made in the ring,
Mm-hmm.
talking people into arenas. Um, you're right. I can't name very many amazing Hulk Hogan matches. When I think of my favorite Hogan matches, I think of moments that happened. I think of, again, I'm a little bit later in life
Mm-hmm.
than you.
Yeah.
I think of the Goldberg match when Goldberg beats him and becomes champion in Atlanta. I think of the Shawn Michaels match, SummerSlam 2005, because of the ridiculous selling by Shawn.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
Sean was unhappy.
yeah.
Um,
I think of, WrestleMania 6. I think of the Rock. I think of, WrestleMania 18 with the Rock.
mhm. I was
Um,
there.
God, that was a wow. Good for you.
We'll
Good
we'll
for
get
you,
into
man.
that. We'll get into that a little bit further down the line because I have a very specific opinion on that. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I think of stuff like that, and none of those matches were 5-star classics. It's just moments you remember.
Yeah.
Um, who's one of the best, who's the best wrestlers in the world now? You think Cena. Like, it's not because he's a great in-ring worker. It's because he can tell stories and he can, talk people in. Um, he's one of the sloppiest in-ring
Mhm.
guys there is, but
He's loud too.
he's real loud. um,
Tuck
you
the
know,
clothesline, go for the shoulder block.
yeah,
Guy in the third row heard you.
yeah,
Like,
usually the guys they pick to be the guy isn't
mhm,
because they're the best in-ring guys. They have Shawn
mhm.
Michaels syndrome where they're too good at putting other people over. To Dolph Ziggler, same thing.
There
They're
you
too
go.
good at
That's
making other
fits it.
guys look
Yeah,
good.
because yeah, I would call it the Dolph Ziggler, maybe Kurt Hennig syndrome. Like
Hmm.
Sean broke through that barrier. I still to this day don't know how he did it, other than the fact that he was just a dick and happened to resonate with Vince. Don't get me wrong, love Sean to death. I know a lot of people are like, but your hat says you like Brett. And I'm like, I do. I'm allowed to like two. They don't always have to get along. But yeah, it was that. You're exactly right. It's that syndrome of you're too good of a worker. We need you to make this guy look better.
Yeah.
You mentioned a name there, and I saw Jason visibly cringe. I could feel the gravitational pull of his butthole puckering. But you got a solid point there. He's a moments guy.
Hmm.
When you think of Stone Cold Steve Austin, how many matches do you think about? You don't think of very many matches except for WrestleMania 13 versus Brett. You might think of WrestleMania 17 versus when Vince came out, but that wasn't the match you're thinking of. You're thinking of the heel turn. It's a moments guy. WrestleMania 1, that was a moment, right?
Hmm.
By the way, only Piper or not not Piper, only Cowboy Bob Orton and Mr. T are left standing from that main event, including both referees.
Yep.
We've lost Pat, we lost Muhammad Ali, we've lost Orndorff, we've lost Snuka, we've
And the
lost
timekeeper,
Piper.
Liberace.
That's right, and we missed. That's correct. Yes, yeah. Like everybody in that top main event, like it's down between Bob Orton and Mr. T left standing to tell us one-on-one stories. Should we ever run into them? But Hogan was a moments guy. When you think about WrestleMania 3, everybody thinks of two things.
Think of body
Hogan
slamming.
slamming
Yeah.
Andre
And
and
Steamboat
Savage
Savage.
Steamboat.
Yep. That's it.
And that is the perfect example of how pro wrestling is. You have your moments, which was the main event, and you have your matches. I'm more of a matches guy myself, but some of those moments, like you don't think of, like I said, you don't think of Stone Cold, versus Mick Foley. You don't think of it versus The Undertaker. You don't think of him versus Triple H. You think of the beer truck. You think of, the fake gun and Vince peeing himself. You think of throwing the belt into the river. And that's what it is. Like, if you want to talk, did he draw money? Fuck yes, Hogan drew money. That's why we're talking about it. Because without Hogan drawing all those eyes, without Hogan having all those moments, You know, you go back and you look, the list of guys that said, I was at WrestleMania 6. It was the coolest fucking thing. It made me want to be a wrestler. That's how we got Adam Copeland. That's how we got Edge, right? That's Val Venus. Okay, Val may not be, you know, top, but he did it. He had his moments. We got Christian, you know, Chris Van Vliet, the great interviewer, also at WrestleMania 6. And it's those things. Like, nobody talks about the match before Superfly jumped off the cage. But how many guys were at going, I was at the match. Bubba Ray Dudley, Tommy Dreamer, Mick Foley were all at that match. Like, the match sucked, but Superfly coming off the cage, that was the moment. Right? And Hogan was possibly the greatest moment wrestler we've had. I mean, is that offside, guys? Jason, you've been a little quiet.
Well, I'm just letting you guys ramble on. So
yeah, you got to stop me because I'll just keep going.
Well, I mean, where do you want to start? I mean, you want to start when Hogan came back to the WWF, and it was one of the Wild Samoans against Bob Backlund, and then the Wild Samoans were double teaming on Backlund, and Backlund ran back into the curtain, and all of a sudden he brings out Hulk Hogan. And then Hogan helps him save the day. Backlund gives the interview to give him the stamp of approval, pass the torch, and saying he's changed. He's a changed man now, you know. And the next month, Hulkamania runs wild. He beats the Iron Sheik, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, that was Vince printing money.
Yeah, I mean, and I specifically remember watching it on TV because I lived in the Northeast. And watching that moment, and I actually felt that moment like things are changing. Because it was all territories, and I love the territories. I love the magazines, reading about all the territories. That's why I knew about Hulk Hogan from the AWA. We didn't get AWA television in New York. So, you know, once that changed, I mean, things change in the industry. Territories slowly disappeared. Vince picked out all the top stars in each territory. And, you know, that's how the wrestling business started to change, where you basically went from just, you know, all these different territories to, you know, a handful of places to wrestle. So, you know, I don't know where you want to go from there, but that's kind of like the genesis of where it began, giving Hulk Hogan his flowers, because, you know, wrestling went really from, you know, high school gyms and, you know, smaller little tiny arenas to or big arenas and stadiums and, you know, pay-per-view and, you know, on and on and on. I mean, I'm not a Hulk Hogan fan. I've never been a Hulk Hogan fan, but you got to give the guy his flowers, because wrestling today would not be anywhere near it is because of that guy.
Well, I mean, when you listen to the old podcast, and I'm going to, you know, you listen to Pritchard's show, you listen to Jim Ross, you listen to, you know, JBL show, which I highly recommend. JBL is so entertaining when he tells his story. When they talk to these guys that were in WWF at the time of Hogan, it's like, we were running A towns and we were running B towns. And for a bunch of years, we were running C towns.
Yep.
They were running 3 shows a night.
Yep.
7 times a week, 8 times a week, you know, twice on Sundays. And everybody is clamoring to be on the A show. You wanted to be on Hogan's show because you were making money. You might be having great matches in the C towns. You might be having great matches in the B towns, but you were getting paid if you were there with Hogan.
They thanked Hogan. The other wrestlers would thank Hogan. Thank you for the gate, sir. I mean, that was common practice, because they made a ton of money because Hogan was top of the card for years. That's the way it worked.
And you know what? And they started putting him on at intermission, like right before intermission was the Hogan match, because he needed to get the fuck out of the building.
That was the
Beatles. He was Elvis.
Garden. That was traditional in Madison Square Garden for all the main events. It would go on right before intermission would be the quote unquote main event. But yeah.
Now you had the benefit. I love hearing MSG stories, because that's one of the arenas I need to go watch wrestling in.
No, but I mean, you're 100% correct. They need Hogan out of there, get to that next town to make more money. So that's that's the way it was.
And I've also, well, I mean, that worked, especially on those double shot Saturday weekend shows, Sunday weekend shows. But to the point of this way, when we have the ending, it's like, oh, we can announce the rematch for the next time we're in town, which is brilliant. And then you sit there and it's like, okay, so I've seen this show. You know, I'm sure some people fucked off, but then like, oh, and then your main event is going to be the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs. So then you still have the great match afterwards. So Brian, you came in late in the fandom. Hulkamania had reached a fever pitch. In fact, you know, by the early 90s, you know, that WrestleMania 6, 7 era, 6, they were kind of like, okay, we're going to pass the torch to Warrior. Clearly that didn't work. You know, they went to Slaughter. Things sort of picking up a wobble there because they pushed a little too close to the envelope politically. They may have had to change venues for a WrestleMania because there were bomb threats given Sergeant Slaughter's character. But Hogan, you know, he was kind of hanging on. He was looking at other things. He was looking to make that jump to Hollywood like Andre had, you know, obviously. And Santa with muscles was not the Princess Bride, nor is it Guardians of the Galaxy if you're a Dave Bautista fan. But you came in late.
No Holds Barred was classic.
No Holds Barred was a classic. I did see that in the theater. I also saw Suburban Commando in the theater. That was
sorry.
I think that was one of my key factors to going, oh, maybe this ain't the guy. Anyways, but he so you came in a little later. It was still at the peak. I mean, you're sort of watching this. So where did your Hogan fandom go? Clearly, I mean, you're willing to pay for a photo with the man as a grown adult, and I can respect that because that's just what we do. We have money and we're giant children, and that's awesome. We get to be able to do that. So how did your fandom arc go here from the mid 90s? Like, okay, I saw Hogan Warrior. He disappears for 6 months, I think it was. After WrestleMania 6, and we pick it up coming back into WrestleMania 7. So tell me about that for you.
So WWE Hogan, like early 90s, late 80s Hogan, I only got from those videotapes at the library. I wasn't watching Monday Night Raws. I don't even know if he was on Monday Night Raws.
He was on the first couple. Yeah, he was in the mix for the first few, but it was right as he was leaving.
So the Hogan that I remember is going to be WCW Hogan.
Okay.
And it's NWO Hogan. So I remember Hogan back when Hogan found a way to be fucking cool again. You know, and that's the Hogan that I remember. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins. We're wrestling fans. We all know that. Little kids know that shit, you know, even right now.
The training, the prayers, and the vitamins, brother.
Exactly. You know, just like in 30 years, people are going to remember Cena's the "you can't see me" shit. Like, you know, somehow this shit transcribes years later still. So I knew that stuff. I definitely had a yellow Hulk Hogan shirt with holes in it when I was a kid, you know, but the wrestling I remember Hogan doing is WCW and WO shit. So I thought he was cool. Because at that point it's 95, 96. I'm, you know, 8 years old or so. And it's the first cool bad guy that I think I've seen. You know, it's the first tweener that I think I've seen. And I'm 8, so I'm not quite getting all the references they're doing, you know, how they're dressing like Tupac and stuff like that. I'm not quite getting that, you know, but like I get it now. You know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But going back and just watching them, you know, I remember the episode where Hall and Nash came out. You know, I was real young, but I remember it. And then Hogan being that final guy, I remember that. My grandma used to record the pay-per-views for me. She had a satellite in her backyard. She recorded them with no sound, and she'd give them to me the next day. So I watched that pay-per-view after I got out of school the next Monday with no sound. So not knowing what's exactly happening, but seeing the crowd throw everything in to the, you know, to
so
the,
you missed
to the ring.
that accidental spoiler Bobby Heenan gave out, because if you go back and you watch it, and Heenan was being Heenan. Heenan has been trashing on Hogan for years. That was the coolest and most consistent thing in pro wrestling history, is Heenan's hatred for Hogan. And it worked because by the time Heenan was on the commentary booth in WCW, he was supposed to be an in-between. Okay, yeah, he's supposed to lean towards the heels and whatnot, but the NWO was heels against WCW, so we still got to do that. So it doesn't matter what side of the fence Hogan was on, Heenan hated him. And that accidental spoiler, because I have never heard or read anything other than that was just Heenan being Heenan. We didn't know. Tony Schiavone is on record repeatedly. Eric Bischoff is saying, I didn't tell anybody. That was Bobby being Bobby. I mean, if Bobby was still around, he'd probably be able to tell us, like, no, I was just doing the same shtick I'd always done. But he says, yeah, but whose side is he on? And I believe some people's heads would have popped up like lemmings. I saw it after the fact, so I'd already known. So it didn't. But some people had to pop up going, oh, God, no. And other people blow it off. It's like, oh, fuck you, Heenan. He's coming to save. The third man will come out in a minute. Speaking of which, this week we have lost a bunch of celebrities, and Hogan was the third man one more time. That's fucked up. Honestly, I saw somebody post that joke real early this morning, and I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, I feel if you can't laugh at that, then you have no sense of humor, and please stay off the internet. But yeah, I mean, so your main thing was heel Hogan.
It was.
I didn't get WCW up here for a while. It was well into the NWO run. I think they'd kicked the Giant out twice, whatever it was. Jericho, when we first got it, Jericho had just started doing his heel gimmick where he was beating up the announcer, but he was still kind of that white meat guy on the turn. So I had missed it. I started, what do you mean Hulk Hogan turned heel? That's some horse shit. That can't be any good. It was good.
Well, I think you're glossing over a few things here.
Okay, let's hit us with it, big guy.
Sure. When WCW brought him in, had a big parade at Disney World, gave him this huge push, put him right against Ric Flair, and gave him the belt, and basically wanted to recreate WrestleMania. And that only lasted a very short period of time where people started booing him, not only because it was the same shtick, but WCW was not WWF. I mean, it was a different territory, different wrestling. I mean, NWA basically became WCW and different style of wrestling. So, after that shtick ended, then, Hogan started wrestling in all black, kind of giving him still being a good guy, but giving him an edge. All black. That didn't go over until the NWO came along, which obviously we all know, what happened with that. So, there was that little period of time where Hogan wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't just the same shtick. It was the same opponents with the exception of like Flair and the Giant.
I mean, they brought in all WWE guys or WWF guys. That's the same shit that they did in WWF.
You can see it. Now I'm taking Randy Savage out of the equation, and I'm taking Leaping Lanny Poffo out of the equation here because that was a whole different thing that had nothing to do with Hogan. But you can see the Hogan tax. If you want Hulk Hogan, you need Jimmy Hart. You need Brutus Beefcake. You're getting the Honky Tonk Man. You're getting Earthquake. Right? So you can see it. And these guys came in and they did fucking nothing. Although I will
Doom.
Horrible. Oh God. I mean, Kamala. I mean,
horrible. It's cartoon. That's what it was. It brought in the cartoon back into wrestling, and people were just sick and tired of it. And that's basically what they did in WWF. They brought in these big monsters to go against Hogan. Hogan would have to pose and get the 3-count brother. And then they started doing the same thing in WCW, and that's why it flopped.
Yeah. And now my favorite analogy, and I don't know if either of you know this, Kevin Sullivan was asked, what the fuck were you thinking with the Dungeon of Doom? And he was the booker at the time. He was the leader of the Dungeon of Doom. And it might have even been on his podcast. And he said, yeah, I was saddled with all these guys because it was a fucking Hogan tax. Do you want me to spread them out over 7 segments in a show, or do you want to just deal with 5 minutes of them all at once? And I'm like, okay, now the Dungeon of Doom makes sense. I am stuck with 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. I can smear it all over like a Roomba gone wild, or I can just drop it in the litter box and we will deal with it in the span of 2 minutes. Fair enough. Hogan wasn't working. I think the final straw for most WWE people, WWF people, was WrestleMania 9. That tragic main event. And again, I'm going to be looked at as biased here when they pulled the belt off of Brett Yokozuna and then handed it to fucking Hogan.
Terrible. And I'm not a huge Bret Hart fan, but that was effing terrible.
It was.
And Brett was the guy then. They needed to run with Brett absolutely then.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not even it was a weird transition. Yoko deserved it. Yoko was a badass. I will not fault Brett losing to Yokozuna. I won't, because look at Yoko. Deserved it. Great worker. I mean, it's kind of sad the way it went, but you know what? At least it was the fridge, not the medicine cabinet. And I just said that on a podcast. I'll probably get canceled. There was no reason to tack that on. There was no reason to do it. And I think that's when everything went sideways. He still had some name value. So he left, did his thing. He was doing the critically acclaimed Thunder in Paradise when I believe Ric Flair I know Ric Flair takes credit for it, but I think even Bischoff is like, no, Flair said he doesn't have a contract. You should get him. That was a losing proposition for almost 2 years until the NWO.
Think about it. I mean, Hogan bombed in movies. Thunder in Paradise was shit. He bombed when he came back to WCW. If it wasn't for the NWO, where would Hogan's career have gone?
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the other thing to that. Here's the flip side of that coin. Without the Hogan turn, would the NWO have been as successful?
You are correct, sir. You are 100% correct.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely, please.
So something that's been going into my mind here as we talk is, we already talked about he's not the best in ring guy, best ring worker, but he's a draw, right? So we've now talked about 2 times where Hogan has potentially saved a company or saved wrestling. WrestleMania 1, we've all heard the story. Vince put out loans. He had it going on everything, and Hogan was his draw.
Yeah, Vince Sr. was about to get the company back.
Without Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 1 potentially doesn't work. WWE potentially doesn't work at that point. Number 2, I mean, WCW was cool in the early 90s. They had Sting, they had Vader, they had some cool people.
It was terrible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic here.
It had its high points when WCW pre-Hogan was doing good. They were doing real good.
Late 80s, getting into the 90s.
Okay.
Terrible. But sorry,
let's keep going with Brian here.
Without Hogan turning heel, starting the NWO with Hall and Nash, where does WCW go?
You're correct. You're correct. I mean,
he potentially saved WCW with that turn.
Well, he changed, he revolutionized or helped revolutionize the wrestling business, not once, but twice. And that's what you'll always have to give him his flowers, whether you like him or not. You cannot take that away from the man.
And I cannot think of many other wrestlers in history that have done that twice.
There's nobody. That's why he's the biggest ever.
Yep. I will see you twice, and I'm going to raise you to a third. So,
Gawker?
The ECW goes out of business. WCW goes out of business. Vince Jr. now owns everything. The invasion angle shit the bed. I don't think it can be. I think had they let it run to WrestleMania 20, they might have saved it when you see the amount of talent that came in after they ended the invasion angle, but that's a whole other show or two.
The invasion angle is the biggest disappointment in all of wrestling.
It absolutely was. And I think the only way to everybody wants of all the time. The only way to save that would have been to let it run longer, because then you got the guys off contract, I think. But that's a whole other show. We won't break that down right now because I have some thoughts. I bought my tickets for WrestleMania 18 sight unseen. It was not, I went to Texas the year before, and my buddy's like, well, we went to Texas. Why aren't we going in our own country? Okay. Weekend trip to Toronto. I was shocked. It was March 17th. It was St. Patrick's Day in 2002. It was not the greatest card. Jericho and Triple H, abso-fucking-lutely. Let's go. Great match. Flair and Undertaker, abso-fucking-lutely. Let's go. Great match. You look at the rest of the talent, Regal and Rob Van Dam tore that place down in the opener. But what shocked me is, and it wasn't a snowy day, it was just one of those cold gray days. You just go outside and you're like, Jesus Christ, we could leave the meat on the porch. There's people walking around in spandex and cut up Hogan shirts and boas. They were chanting for and I don't mean like on the way from the car to the building. I mean, we were outside that building for hours, just socializing and just hanging out and meeting people and talking to people from all over the place. The streets were echoing with chants of Hogan. The streets. Hogan's return that night. There was like 4 dudes in the entire place cheering for Rock, and I was one of them. But like without Hogan coming back, like the NWO, great. We got Hall back, we got Nash back, we got Hogan back. NWO's here. It's a big deal. Clearly, that shit the bed as well. But that place was nuts for Hogan. Nuts. The business had dropped out the bottom from a year prior, because it was almost exactly a year from the purchase of WCW to WrestleMania 18, because it was right before WrestleMania 17 that it got bought. I think it was something like 51 weeks. That place was insane for Hogan. He bolstered that business. And then he had that, I'm not going to say great run, but he was at the top of the card from then on. He went from Rock. Next month, he beat Triple H. Next month, he lost to The Undertaker. And he just kept going. Mm-hmm. And he bolstered that business. Brock Lesnar was just a little puppy. He wasn't even litter box trained yet. And
I'm going to disagree with this.
Okay, go for it.
I don't think you can give him a third run, a third changing the business moment. I would give you the fact that was an unbelievable WrestleMania. That was an unbelievable match. Him coming to Toronto was kind of like giving him his flowers from
mm-hmm.
like kind of like an Academy Award for all, like a lifetime achievement award. I feel that was the moment compared to rather than changing the business the third time.
Okay, fair enough. I can't argue with that because I see your point. Also on the subject of that match, when asked about how much does commentary add to a match, and I've heard this on his podcast a lot, Jim Ross gets asked this, and he's like, well, if you want to know, go put on WrestleMania 18, watch Hogan and Rock with the sound off, and watch it with the sound on. I never liked that match because I was there live. I didn't have the commentary. I was already tainted. Mm-hmm. When I watched it back, absolutely, the commentary made the match. So let's see here. We have Parmesan Russell. Thank you for joining us, buddy. Nice to see you in the comments. Jason Barber, all the way from Tasmania, joining us for the little Hulk Hogan talk. And my good friend Shauna out in Ontario, as we're talking about. I must have said Toronto too much. My Ontario people are showing up. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here. If you want to say anything about the Hulkster himself, go right ahead. Now, Hulk Hogan inadvertently, part of one of the most memorable moments in Booker T's career. So we're gonna fall down this rabbit hole because this is the beginning of the end. This is his Batman moment. He lived long enough to become the hero. Booker T, and I believe it was some sort of tag team thing. I don't remember. Cut that promo. Hulk Hogan, we coming for the belt. A word that a blonde, blue-eyed Canadian is not going to say on the air. And you could see Stevie Ray trying his best. And you know you're not supposed to laugh, but you're like, you get that twitch and you're just hoping snot doesn't shoot out your nose. And Sister Sherry's like, oh, we all fired. He just inadvertently gave us one of the best moments of of WCW. And there's a lot of moments there. Like we can run through WCW moments, but Booker T accidentally falling into, oh, the camera's on mode was fantastic. Now
it's like the scene. It's like the scene in Black Sheep whenever Chris Farley's on stage at that Rock the Vote concert and he yells "Kill Whitey," and the guy and the guys in the back are like, "Oh no, 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 no!"
Yeah,
like that's kind of what that reminds me of. That entire thing. Like
yeah,
it's
100%.
yeah, absolutely.
It's just like, I mean, it's almost like a Deadpool moment where it's just like, what's that word bubble? Oh Jesus, I said that. Breaking the fourth wall. Keith Hogan was his first ever live show against King Kong Bundy. Now, right there, that's prime. Like Bundy would have been in his prime there. That was had to be around the WrestleMania 2 time because they would have been, I don't want to say rehearsing, but house shows are definitely rehearsals. Let's be honest with this. At one point, house shows were what was supporting the business, and then they realized, like, no, we can make more money if we rehearse 3 days a week before we go live. Fair? I mean, and they're more fun.
Well, before pay-per-view, it was, smaller shows, and that led up to the monthly big show at Madison Square Garden before pay-per-view. Yep. So,
and that was
kind of the progression of the business.
Yeah, and that was exactly it throughout the entire thing. Like you'd lose. I mean, you go back and you listen to some of these old timers talk, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no, they said we're 10-time tag team champions, but we're more like 150 because we would, on the loop, we would do the same match. We would lose it in Tupelo, Mississippi, and we'd lose it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we'd lose it and we'd lose it, and we just handed the belt because that wasn't on TV yet, so you could just hand the belts back and do the match again, right?
No social media, no internet.
Yeah,
word didn't get around. Maybe the magazines covered it, but probably not.
Yeah, I mean that's just the way it was back then. The world was not nearly as small. I mean, the magazines started getting out there. They started getting national publications. So you start seeing this. Okay, so we're talking Hogan matches. Now, I was clearly at the Rock one. I remember it was a very rare house show here at our football stadium, BC Place. Normally, it was at our hockey arena where the Canucks played, the Pacific Coliseum. We didn't get Hogan a lot then. I saw Andre the Giant and the Ultimate Warrior there. I saw the best tag team match I'd ever seen live until WrestleMania 17 there, the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, and a 20-minute draw. Hulk Hogan comes to town. They move it across town. It's not like it was today where the Canucks play across the street from the football stadium. We had to go all the way across town at this point. We're in the football stadium, and it's Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter in a street fight. So they both came out wearing different kind of camo. That was the first time I saw the man live. And it was right before I had realized, like for me, I realized there was a certain point where I'm not fighting over who gets to use Hulk Hogan's LJN or, Mattel figure. I'm fighting over who gets the Dynamite Kid and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. That's when my shift happened. I wasn't talking about, the Hulk Hogan match. I was talking about the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs and Tito Santana and Rick Rude. That's where my shift started. And I wasn't quite there yet. So it was the coolest fucking thing. I mean, they didn't sell the place out, but there was probably 30,000 people here for it. I'd never been in a crowd that big in my life. I mean, 12, 15,000 people for a hockey game was about the best I had got, but Hulk Hogan comes to town versus Sergeant Slaughter. I'm seeing the WrestleMania main event early. Fuck yeah. I didn't know what was up. Now I can look back and go, oh, that we went from the B town to the A town for 1 week. What about you guys? Jason, did you get to see the man in Madison Square Garden?
I did. And, I was just thinking about that. I cannot tell you specifically what match because I'd have to go back and look at my old programs that I still have. But I can't remember a specific match. I can't remember a specific moment. I know I saw him live. Nothing pops to mind, which means that, it wasn't really that important or great. I don't know. Again, I was never a Hogan fan. So,
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like I said, I'm a recovering Hulkamaniac. I just sort of gave you the Coles notes. Brian, what about you, man? Any live Hulk Hogan match experience? I mean, you'd have been young when he was still doing it, but he had some stuff in TNA. He did his Mr. America run, which was
I was a Seatown guy, man. I grew
yeah.
up in Youngstown, Ohio. So that's about an hour from Cleveland, an hour from Pittsburgh. My parents weren't taking me. So
Mm-hmm.
it was very much, if it came to Youngstown, I'd go, and I was always Seatowns. So I never got to see Hogan in his heyday. I never got WCW Hogan. I never got to see that live. I was in an arena with Hulk Hogan one time. He was not
Yeah.
wrestling. It was WrestleMania 35. So,
Okay.
and just the pop being in that, hearing
Crazy.
the the theme and him coming out, like goosebumps, straight goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm so jealous you were in Madison Square Garden whenever he was there, even though you don't remember it very well. Like, I think of like, wow, that'd be a pop, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Madison Square Garden. I watched the Ring of Honor New Japan show there. But being in that arena with Hogan would have just been incredible to me, just to hear that pop, feel
Mm-hmm.
that pop. That would have been something really cool. I was at Mania 33 whenever the Hardys came out, and that pop, still gives me
Yeah.
goosebumps. I couldn't imagine, the Madison Square. That's the coolest arena I've ever been into in my life. Rosemont Horizon's number 2, Madison Square Garden's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing the pop in that arena would have been so cool. But I never got a chance to watch him wrestle. There's a lot of big names I never got a chance to see live because I didn't really go to a lot of shows as a kid. Didn't have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money growing up. And Seatowns. I never got to see Shawn Michaels live. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I never saw Brett.
Oh,
I
you're breaking my
saw
heart.
Owen. I saw Owen out of Seatown, but yeah, I never saw Brett.
Yeah.
I wish, but Seatowns. So I never got to see
Yeah.
Hogan
I mean,
live.
what can you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like we didn't Vancouver for a major Canadian city. We didn't get A-town status except for the one time. I've gone down to Seattle for more shows than I can count. I mean, as I was saying earlier, it's like, well, we went to Texas. Why aren't we going to Toronto? It's in our home country. And then it turned out the next year after that, it's like, it's a fucking drive. We don't have to get on an airplane. Okay, going to WrestleMania 19. So that's just it. It's timing, and it's weird how you can think back. It's like there are people like, you saw Andre. I'm like, I saw Andre. Andre was not in his best days at that point, but I was 4 seats in from the aisle when he walked down there. And that's giving me goosebumps now thinking about it. That
And
Hulk
again,
Hogan pop.
a moments guy. I
Yep.
can't think of very many really good bell to bell Andre matches, but moments. Seeing somebody that big, that large of a
Yep.
human, when you're younger, for sure, even just my
Oh,
God,
yeah.
that's a mountain of a man. People don't make them like that. It's same thing with everything we've been talking about. He's a moments person, just like Hulk was.
Yeah, and that's Andre Younger. Oh, no, there's a whole show on that too. But that videotape is much harder to get a hold of. All right, so I want to touch on the downfall just a little bit. Hulk Hogan,
Please.
had a shitty. Jason's waiting. This is your blood seems to have rushed from your face, sir. Are you okay?
Say your prayers and eat your fucking vitamins.
Yeah, you know what? And at what age did you realize what he meant by vitamins? Because it wasn't vitamins. It was not vitamin C that gave him the 24-inch pythons, brother.
Well, I mean, look, I was, a teenager. I didn't know about steroids and all that stuff. I mean, it really just, until this steroid scandal happened back in the early 90s, that's when, I put 2 and 2 together. I just remember he had the opportunity. He went on I think the Arsenio Hall show, and he was asked about it, and he fucking lied. He had the perfect opportunity to say, you know what? I did. I screwed up. You know, I'm human like everybody else, but I still believe, hey, you know, vitamins and prayers and all that bullshit. But, you know, it's just so funny that the nicest guys are the heels and the biggest asshole jerk offs are usually the baby faces. And that's kind of what he was, just a liar. And right then and there, man, right then and there, it was like you knew his true character, and it never got better.
All right, Shauna piping in with a fun fact that she's her family and the Hart family were fairly close, and her mom has insisted on Brett's daughter. I've read Brett's book. I know how monogamous he wasn't with his marriage. So
Brett might have a lot of daughters.
Favorite, you may be my new favorite person, and that's saying a lot, Shauna, because you have been one of my favorite person for a long time. You know, we go back quite a ways, so you've just actually managed to go up another notch in my book. 23andMe is your friend. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, I mean, let's get back to the Hulkster here. Like, is the steroid trial downfall was really the start of it, because you saw the first, like, he was supposed to testify against Vince. He didn't, but his entire thing, yeah, you kind of do. I recently met Brett, and now I'm not going to be able to unsee that. So, but he's like, well, you don't work for him. You want to come and testify? And he's like, yeah, all right. He went and he did it. Now he didn't sell Vince down the road. He told the truth, allegedly. But I mean, that was, you sort of saw that shift. It's like, there's no loyalty with you at this point. Now we know now that there's a love-hate relationship over the years with that. But I mean, Hogan has had issues with honesty. He had told people loud and proud for years that The Undertaker hurt his neck in that Survivor Series match. Nobody that has ever seen that footage can understand why. Because it's
could have ended the. Think about that. What if Vince buried the Undertaker right then and there? Just because of fucking Chump Hogan.
Yep,
and he was a foot away from that canvas. He was not even close.
That was the exact phrase I was going to use. He couldn't have been any further away if the Undertaker had tied him to the fucking Titantron above the ring. And he went, oh no, it's this brother, it's that brother. His relationship with the truth, his lots of incidences. Now there are some where he had been quite agreeable to things, where he stroked the Fu Manchu and like, that doesn't work for me, brother. He was not into the NWO. They were ready to put Sting in that position. I think it would have killed the NWO, because you would have an NWO with Sting versus Hulk Hogan in the red and yellow. WCW dies in 96.
I agree.
Right? Like, that's the only way the NWO worked, was through that shock moment. And we have not seen a heel turn that good until last February in Toronto when John Cena did it. Now, a lot of people are going to have the same reaction with Cena. I haven't heard of Cena burying very many people, but Hogan had that reputation. And then, you know, his career kind of comes to an end. He has a shock jock buddy down in Florida, Bubba the Love Sponge, that he's allegedly good friends with, to the point where they start swinging. And Hogan is, unbeknownst to him, taped by Bubba the Love Sponge, not only having sex with Bubba's wife, but cutting a rant because he is unhappy about his daughter's dating choices. Now, I'm a father of 3 lovely girls. You have both met them. Many people out there watching the show have met them. I got dad problems. You know what I mean? I don't think I would take that particular aspect, because Hogan was that was it. That was the racism that dropped. That's the big thing. He used that word that Booker used repeatedly. That sunk him. How he got cheered after that anywhere blows my fucking mind. It cost him his.
Where was his I mean, the lame ass apologies he did for that. He could have done so much to redeem himself after that came out, and he did nothing. It was like not taking accountability for his words and what he said. And that, you know, again, you know, you want to look at little things, you know, in his career, milestones, good milestones, bad. That's a big milestone, and that's a bad milestone. So, you know, continue.
Yeah, that was just it. It's his apology. It was
lack of.
Well, he went back to the WWE, and he didn't apologize to anybody in the room. And, you know, there's large, scary men in there. Booker T is not a small dude. Mark Henry is not hard to figure out that this man will break you. And I've stood next to Mark Henry. I have Mark Henry's cruise badge.
Thank you, Sarah.
What Hogan say to these guys? Watch out for cameras, brother. You don't know where they are. What? That's your advice to the talent is watch it. You don't know who's recording? Holy shit. I haven't tasted his beer, but I don't know if I want to put dime in his pocket for it or, his estate. But that alone, how he got back on TV and got cheered at any point is beyond me, but he did. Brian, what do you feel about this?
There are some things about Hogan that I can play devil's advocate with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we talk about the Hogan tax.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a Hogan tax or is he super loyal to his friends?
Fair.
The steroid thing. He has more to think about than Vince McMahon right there. He's got his entire livelihood. He's got sponsorships outside of this. He has movies to worry about. He has his entire persona to worry about.
And to be fair, it's not the Olympics. Pro wrestling is not a purely competitive sport. So,
okay, wait a minute.
Okay,
I'll stop you right there because you cannot in this situation you cannot compare an Olympic athlete to a wrestler because do not get emotionally attached to an Olympic wrestler like you do a professional wrestler. And when somebody is bragging about they are natural, that all they do is they're a good guy and they say their prayers and they eat their vitamins and they work out so hard, and then he turns out to be the biggest fucking liar on the earth and doesn't take accountability and doesn't make apologies for what he did. That's the issues I have with the guy.
Yeah. And that's fine.
We're not even getting into all the lies and exaggerations about being the lead star on the wrestler movie or playing bass for Metallica. I mean, he just went on and on spewing all these lies and lies.
Oh God, I forgot about that. And don't forget, it was supposed to be the Hulk Hogan grill, not the George Foreman grill.
That's right.
But I don't mean him specifically. I mean wrestlers in general. Okay, it's not a purely competitive sport. If you want to get on the gas, do whatever you need to do. Okay, Brian, back to your point. Sorry about the rants there.
You're good. Yeah, I'm with you. If you want to be on steroids for wrestling. I don't care. It honestly makes it better. In my opinion, just now we know the effects of them. That's the choice you make. But some things I cannot rationalize with Hulk Hogan. Racists are racists, right? This is a very different time of life, and absolutely not. There's no way. And the apology shit. You're right. Everything you said is completely right. I cannot rationalize that. Nobody can rationalize that. The apology shit. I don't get how he gets back on TV and gets cheered. You're right. Especially in the modern day and age, I do not see how this happens. But it does. You're completely right.
He did his TNA run, came back to WWE. He got cheered when he came out and fucked up the name of the stadium. Let's not forget that. You're not in the fucking Superdome, buddy. You're in New Orleans. But you know what? We can. Everybody's mind slips once in a while. It happens. But the racism is just like racism and fucking with kids is, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that in like leave kids alone in every aspect. But I'm not saying Hogan did that. Don't get me wrong. But the racism, they're right there for me. We don't need it. I have somebody I love and respect that is an insider to the industry, and I saw his post today saying, if you're one of those people that is, saying, oh, it was just one word and we can't discount the whole of the career, then just you don't get it. You just remove yourself from my friends list, whatever it was. He's exactly right. Like, don't know. That's not cool. You cannot do that. That is such archaic thinking. It is terrible. You want to be protective of your daughter. I get that. You were both there on that last cruise when, dad mode was activated. And it wasn't just me. I had a crew of folks and you two were part of it. Yeah. Right. Dad mode was activated. But it was for a different reason. It's not just, oh, well, and I hate to do this. It's like, it wasn't anything other than the person's behavior. It wasn't because she was chatting with Jamal, right? That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. Period. You want to be upset about your daughter's choice in boyfriends? Fine. Make it a personality issue. Don't make it something so archaic and horseshit. And honestly, it bit him in the ass real hard. And we saw that on the Netflix debut. It finally all broke free. He had more incidents of stuff. He got all the lies had caught up to him. And it kind of breaks my heart that Netflix. Now I'm long past being a fan of Hulk Hogan, but when he came out on that Netflix debut on January 6th, he had Jimmy Hart with him. The music was going, and I'm going to get into that. That's going to be my last point here. He got booed out of the fucking building.
You're missing a big point. He was at the Republican National Convention.
Oh, that too.
And he blamed it on that, oh, we're in California, they're very liberal, which they are. It's California. And they only booed me because I was just at the Republican National Convention, where the fact was they booed him because of the person he is. His true character came out. And getting back to that racism comment, he had the perfect opportunity because of his star power to say, I screwed up. I said something bad. How do we bridge this together? How do we all come together? And how do I make this right? And he just blew it off like it was nothing. Like, because I'm Hulk Hogan, it's just going to blow away. And I'm going to move on with my career. And I'm going to get this gig, or I'm going to get this movie, or I'm going to get this beer, or I'm going to get freestyle wrestling, whatever. But his character is unfortunately, in my opinion, because I basically watched his whole career, that will define the man.
Yes. And that is what should define all of us. It doesn't matter if you're on TV. It doesn't matter if you're in a rock band. It doesn't matter if you're running a podcast that only 9 people watch ever. Our characters should define us, not your star power. It is from the heights that man was at. From the fact that he dragged millions of people into watching professional wrestling, his aura, his career is responsible for hundreds of other professional wrestlers that we know and love and think the world of to become professional wrestlers. For him to walk out there and get booed like that was fucking heartbreaking. He got booed for a good reason. I'm not saying he didn't. And for him to turn around and blame it on him showing up to a Republican rally, fuck you. The Undertaker had Trump on his podcast a couple weeks beforehand. The Undertaker was cheered. That's not your politics. That's your character, sir. Brian, thoughts?
Completely in agreement with everything you said. If they're booing him because he showed up at the Republican National Convention, then they shouldn't be watching WWE to begin with. Linda McMahon's on that fucking committee, so how many wrestlers are Republicans? Let's be honest. They make a lot of money and they live in states that don't have a lot of tax. Put 2 and 2 together. They may not talk about it,
Jericho.
but I'm sure they are. Yeah, very much. Very much. Yeah. His wife was at the fucking the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and you know what? We've all met because of Chris Jericho. Whatever.
Kane is the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, and he ran as a Republican. It's yes, that happened directly before, and there was some heat on him for that, for sure. That may have helped a little bit with the booing, but it was certainly not the reason.
It absolutely was not.
Yeah.
And it's sad. All right, let's end this on a high note, because originally I wanted to get you two together to discuss great theme musics, and this was Mother's Day, not last Mother's Day, the one before that. My mom doesn't live in town. I don't have these commitments, and I fucked it up because I forgot it was Mother's Day, and so did Brian, because he's like, I'm at lunch with my mom, I forgot. And that's fair because we both blew it. But you know what? The Eye of the Tiger theme in the early 80s, coming straight out of Rocky. Okay, we can get with that. I wouldn't recommend very many people try singing it. I've seen it happen. I've hosted too many karaoke nights. It very rarely turns out well. But then he went to, I don't want to say he stole it, because I believe he the US Express, I think Barry left the company. Yep. So yep. That team broke up. But Real American was supposed to be for the US Express, and they gave it to Hogan. Those chords hit, and the roof comes off of whatever building it's in, obviously, except for the one time when those chords hit at WrestleMania 18. I'm thinking about it right now, and just to quote The Rock, chills, goosebumps. Yeah, absolutely. For a minute, I was transported back to, being in BC Place and hearing that live for the first time. How important do you think Rick Derringer's Real American was musically to Hulk Hogan, Brian?
It's the first wrestling theme that I remember. And that's it. It's like you said, goosebumps. WrestleMania 35, unannounced. Alexa Bliss comes out. Hey, want a WrestleMania moment? Hogan's theme comes on, and goosebumps immediately. And that's when I'm a grown ass fucking man, so it's huge.
You're a grown ass fucking man that suddenly became 8 years old again.
It's the glass shattering. It's the, if you smell, it's, it's the first theme that I can remember that the second you hear that first note, you know exactly what it is.
Jason, how do you feel about that?
See, so I have a different perspective, because I grew up Eye of the Tiger. That's, and, when it comes to obviously Survivor owns the rights to Eye of the Tiger, not Vince McMahon, henceforth why we got Real American. But, and Brian's a guitarist, and he, Brian, that the beginning to I mean, there's something about that riff that just, it really starts pumping you up, and then it starts popping, the guitars and the bass and the drums kicking at the same time. That's what I remember seeing Hulk Hogan, Eye of the Tiger. You can't take anything away from Real American.
Eye of the Tiger is super special to older wrestling fans and Supernatural fans.
Yes,
you nailed it.
Yeah. Today I learned that Hulk Hogan walked out the Eye of the Tiger before. I did not know that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, we're out here educating the youth, Jason.
Education.
You know what? You both live in states where education is a little higher than it is in Mississippi, so that's or Alberta. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't until I believe 2019, when Jericho Cruise 2 happened. That song belongs to Rocky, Sean says. It absolutely does. It's the Rocky theme. You're not wrong. And honestly, I think it's just Vince McMahon never wanted to pay for music rights. It's very rarely happened, which is why I believe CM Punk and Edge both paid for their songs, which is why Cult of Personality and Alter Bridge are able to go wherever those two go. Vince just didn't want to pay for the music rights. And that's fine. It was probably expensive as fuck. Like, let's be honest, that's an all-time classic. You may as well try. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just go ahead and use Don't Stop Believin'. Like, good luck. That's going to cost you a fortune. But Jericho Cruise 2 happens, and suddenly the phenomenon of we're going to sing along to this song. How we had Real American for so long, and not one single crowd sang every word to it is beyond me. Like, we all knew the words. We knew what was going on. Everybody's just, we're screaming. We're not singing along to it. Now we'll sing along for anybody. Do we know your words yell enough? Yeah, we sing it for Edge. We sing it for Randy Orton. We obviously sing it for Jericho, even though he switched his song. If he went back to Judas, you better believe that roof's coming off the building, and it's karaoke night with 10,000 people and no microphones.
I got a theory on that.
Go for it.
So when Real American was happening and people weren't singing and they were with Judas, this is before the internet. This is before people cared about going viral. This is before people wanted to make the show about them more than the wrestlers. This is before people hijack shows. That's all a thing now. It was not a thing back then. They didn't do that for anybody, so.
Yeah, we didn't have the chance really. I mean, you'd get the USA, but that'd be about it. Now, I mean, anybody that's been on the Jericho cruise will tell you we don't shut the fuck up. We chant for everything. We'll be chanting in the bathrooms.
We chant for the Disney ship.
That's right.
This ship.
We cussed out our own ship. I mean, don't you dare interrupt Corey Taylor. Don't you dare interrupt Corey Taylor.
Razzle dazzle, got him good, right? I mean, we anything we can think of, we just do. So,
I mean, we come home and we start talking to people, and you can, check out my open mic night for that. But I come home and I'm like, clean the cat box, clean the cat box. And that's just how we go. But yeah, you have Jason Barber down in Tasmania knows exactly what's up. Fuck your boat. We made Canadian news. Canadian national news picked that story up. So
that's awesome.
This is also why they won't park us next to another boat. Not since Cruise 2 have they put us next to another boat.
They know better.
Yeah, no, they figured it out. Chris, like, whatever you do. They tried putting us out to sea one time. They're like, no, we're not. We can't land. So that they're all right. Well, we didn't need to do that. Anyways, but yeah, I think you have a solid point there of the hijacking of the shows. It used to be a lot of signs. We used to have, wrestlers do their wrestler thing and they get to a certain point, and then that's when you see everybody gets their cameras up. You go back and watch those old tapes, and if you look at the crowd, it is signs, and right before the big move happens, flash bulbs. End to end. And I've been in some of those big stadiums when it happens. That TLC match at WrestleMania 17, retinal damage for like everybody in the audience because the flash bulbs were going off all the time. So yeah, I think that's a good point about the hijacking the shows and the social media stuff. But I mean, that was probably the first pro wrestling theme song I knew every word to.
Absolutely was.
Yeah.
And potentially it's one of the first theme songs that actually had music too. You think back, I'm sorry, lyrics too. You think back then, like, Jake the Snake didn't have any lyrics to his. There's many that just Brett's didn't. There's so many that didn't even have lyrics back then.
Freebirds had music.
Yeah,
but the Freebirds was licensed. Right. And like that chord progression, like the dun 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 dun, roof comes off the building. And the only song from that era that I could think of, that early like WrestleMania 2-3 era, would have been the Road Warriors, but they were using Iron Man. Right. So you had that slide.
Iron Man. That's like 83, 84.
Yeah. So about the same time, but again, licensed music. Now, I doubt they paid for it because carny as fuck. And let's be honest, regional promotions, like we weren't seeing Jim Crockett promotions out here in Vancouver, and you probably weren't seeing them in anywhere too far out of the Carolinas. So, I mean, if only we had a Carolinian on the show that could answer that, but you guys are both shaking your heads, so you probably didn't see a whole lot of JCP, and you guys are much closer than I am. And you guys, conversely, probably didn't see a whole lot of Stampede wrestling.
I got WWE, WCW, ECW. That was it. I never got NWA in any way. I never got anything else ever.
No, I got back in '82 on a Spanish UHF station, channel 47, I believe. I got Florida Championship Wrestling. And that's when I really started getting into wrestling because I had no idea there was anything else but the WWF.
So you got you realized there was more flavor.
I could tell you, I'd love to do a whole podcast on Florida Championship Wrestling. So, but I'm not going to digress too much. But we did get Jim Crockett Promotions around '86 again on a UHF station, maybe '85. So I did get to see some of it. But I forgot where we're going with this point, but so I was fortunate enough to see other territories.
Yeah. See, I didn't have a whole lot. Vancouver is not a hotbed, but one of the coolest things we had was it'd be Saturday afternoons. It was WWE or WWF Superstars, followed by Stampede Wrestling from Calgary. And every year or two, they would flip flop. It was downhill Stampede Wrestling. I do remember seeing the Dynamite Kid and Chris Benoit as a tag team on a couple of episodes. Nice. So there's an interesting crossover. But I mean, we're about 20 minutes overtime. I don't want to keep everybody too much longer. I'm also late for dinner. So Hulk Hogan, good, bad, or indifferent, his downfall is not something we can gloss over. And that's just the way it is. It's happened in wrestling with more than one person. I mean, just let's look at my Canadian guy that I just mentioned, Chris Benoit. We can't forgive that. Vince McMahon, there's no coming back from what he's done. And unfortunately, Hulk Hogan is there as well. But we also can't deny that without Hulk Hogan, pro wrestling might not even exist.
That's the biggest thing to think of here. Like we said earlier, he potentially saved wrestling twice. There's not many people, if any at all. You know, The Rock potentially comes to mind, but he only really did it one time, and he had Austin to help him. You know,
I mean, I definitely have thoughts on that dynamic, but you're correct.
Yeah,
it's not unarguable.
We talk about all the time who is the biggest money draw in wrestling. And that's hard to really rationalize because of inflation and stuff like that. People say Austin, but that's almost 20 years after Hogan did, you know.
I would argue The Undertaker, just because he might not have been drawing the biggest, but he did it for longer than any of the big
he was consistent. Absolutely. You know, people say Cena, but you know, Hogan money compared to Cena money, inflation is hard to say, right? Hogan saved wrestling twice. You know,
I can't argue it.
So no matter what he did, it's hard to look past, right? But like, there's a lot of accomplishments this guy had as well. And I know that I wouldn't be able to enjoy the things that I enjoy if it wasn't for him. So was he a perfect dude? Absolutely fucking not. I'm not perfect. You know, nobody's perfect, right? You know, but he dealt with things in a very public way, and that sucks. What he went through, and I totally understand why people would X him out, cancel him, be done with him. I get it, you know, and I wasn't the biggest Hulkamaniac. I was never the biggest Hulk fan anyway. You know, I watched him in WCW when I was a kid because he was cool as a bad guy, but you know, whatever. I appreciate what he did though. Without Hulk Hogan, I potentially have a giant part of my childhood and a giant part of my adulthood that isn't there. And potentially without Hulk Hogan, I don't know you guys. Because wrestling lived on.
The roots run deep, and he is real close there. Like,
it's a giant butterfly. It's a giant butterfly.
If not for Hulk Hogan, I probably wouldn't have clued into pro wrestling. Jason, final thoughts on the Hulkster?
I'm giving Hulk Hogan his flowers because he deserves everything he did for the wrestling business. But when it comes to Terry Bollea, he's a flawed man, unfortunately.
There it is.
And that's where it's a complicated situation.
Let's just remember that Hulk Hogan has a 10-inch penis and Terry Bollea has a 3-inch penis. That was the biggest thing I've ever heard him say. That was great.
That's whew. If you're a Bruce Pritchard fan, it's the Hulkster's thermos right there. Jason Barber piping in, and he's got a really good point. Hulk and Vince set the table that everyone eats at. I mean, and both of these guys
can't deny it.
Yeah,
neither both one those of guys may have done despicable things, but without them, I miss a big part of my life without them.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. There'd be a lot fewer people in the wrestling business that we are fans of. And if one of those happens to be Chris Jericho, none of us know each other.
Exactly.
Right. You can, I mean, I'm not a big fan of, you can trace your trauma back to whatever point. And it's probably something like, in my case, that was, you know, it might've been something 40 years ago. And I say, oh, well, I'm this way, and I'm because of this, and this. But when you do that in this case, yeah, the root of it is, at one point, Hulk Hogan made the business fucking huge, and so did Vince McMahon. Neither one of them are going to be on a stained glass church window, but their influence is undeniable, even if their personal lives are deplorable. So thank you, boys, for joining us. Thank you, everybody that stuck around for almost 90 minutes. We kind of went out of control there, but it was good. It was fun. I appreciate you both for jumping on here, especially last minute, because, you know, yeah. And
Hogan's got a pose, brother. Hogan's got a pose, brother.
Jason must pose. All right. Thank you so much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to get this downloaded and put up. Check it out on Spotify. It's already on YouTube. Facebook's going to delete it in like 30 days or something. I don't know what they do now, but Spotify and Apple and YouTube, if you want to share this, I will send links out to you boys later on so you can show off your skills. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will be back. I have a game I want to play on the next Cheap Seat Booking. It should be interesting. So thank you for joining us. And to the family and friends of Hulk Hogan that are probably never, ever going to hear me say this because I'm a tiny little podcast out of Canada, my condolences.